I'm Alex, I'm Secretary of Executive Board of the IEO, and today we meet with David Hodges, a person that represents UK, works in the Rochester Independent College. This year was the first year that United Kingdom team participated in person and had a wonderful, outstanding results. And this is why I wanted to invite you, David, to talk and maybe to share your experiences on how did you organize the national competition? What are the unusual things that you encounter? What are the strong points of your organization, of your preparation process? How did you manage to achieve these wonderful results? And maybe you have something to share with the community of like-minded people.
So should we start with our national competition?
Yeah. If you could please tell us how it started, who are the interested persons, organizations, how did you find some sponsorship if you did? Do you have any partners? How it works overall?
Sure. Well, actually, we participated in 2023, but we did it remotely, and that was our first year. And the idea of participation actually came from an ex-student called Angelina. She'd heard of the contest back in her native Russia and really wanted to get involved. But what she found was, obviously, because she was studying in England, that she couldn't get involved. So she approached our principal, Alistair, and asked him and said, look, can we be a host for the UK? And he said yes. And we had a competition to a limited extent in 2023. And that's when I joined the company. I joined Rochester Independent College in September 23, so a year ago. And one of my tasks was to continue with the Olympiad, but then to try and grow it. Now, the interesting thing is interesting story here is obviously one of the things we found was obviously we sort of developed it very much sort of not really knowing anybody else. So it was quite so actually going to Hong Kong this year was a real eye-opener in terms of finding out how other countries do it, because when you talk about partners and sponsorship and all of those things, we actually don't have any of those things. Our competition is basically, without sounding too arrogant, is basically run by me with some help from some other people in sort of specialist things, but it's basically my thing. I have a lot of help from marketing. I have a lot of help from our admin people, and obviously the college itself hosts the final, and I have lots of help in that. But we don't sort of have to describe it as a large organization. I think maybe not in the way that other countries already have such very developed systems already. But Rochester Independent College, I mean, this thing with Rochester Independent College runs the competition, funds the competition, and obviously funded our UK finalists to come out to Hong Kong as well this year. So it really has been a tremendous commitment by Rochester Independent College this year. We try to model the competition basically on the IEO. So round one is a set of 50 multiple choice economics-based questions. Again, we use the same marking thing. So 4 points for a correct answer, -1 point if it's incorrect. And then obviously we mark all of the students. So we had about 1,200 students register for the first round. Interestingly, I'd obviously set a spreadsheet to mark the answers, because it's all on a Google form, so it all exports to a spreadsheet. So you can literally just mark it as, either 4 or -1. And I woke up at 3 o'clock one morning because I'd done the marking, and everybody's scores were in multiples of 5. And I woke up at 3 a.m. thinking, oh no, I've done something wrong. I've done something wrong. Oh, they're all in multiples of 5. I've obviously made a mistake. But then, of course, I realized actually if you get 4 or -1, everybody's score will be in multiples of 5. So it was a big relief. Anyway, 20% of our students then go on to the second phase, which is the financial literacy round, which obviously is run by the IEO. So we register with you guys, and we actually ended up with 200 or so contestants in the second round who took the financial literacy, and that's obviously very much like every other country. We then take the top 25. So the 25 best contestants from the financial literacy then go on to our UK final. Our UK final is entirely based upon the business case, which possibly lends itself to some of our discussion later on, I think. We pulled them into groups at random, and I created a business case that they had to argue, sort of based, it's macroeconomics is based on infrastructure this year. They had 2.5 hours to research and to create and prepare a presentation. And then they had to present in front of 4 judges. And we picked 4 judges. One of our judges was a lady by the name of Dr. Susan Walsh, who I really do recommend if you have the chance. She is a force of nature. She's a wonderful lady and tremendously skilled, and she's very, very good at training people for presentation. We then had a judge who worked as a chief financial officer in the City of London. We had a judge who was an economics professor, and she was our head judge. And we also had a judge who was a deputy director within our local council, within our local government, who was also responsible for planning. So actually has an awful lot of experience in terms of planning. So they all had different areas of expertise. And what we did is as they were planning and preparing, each judge would then visit each team and give them some feedback on what they'd done so far, give them some insights, some tips, some recommendations, things that would help their presentation and how they present. They'd obviously then present in front of the judges, and then we have a winning team. And that was the team that came to Hong Kong.
So the team that came to Hong Kong also has shown relatively nice results in other spheres. I believe you have, what, 4 medals?
Yeah, all four of our team were medalists, which is great.
Amazing.
They collectively they scored above average in all 3 sections. So the multiple choice, the written answer, and the financial literacy section. One thing we did, we thought actually, and perhaps we didn't train as well as, was that our questions in the UK were really sort of very much based upon sort of what you might see in an A-level economics test. So A-level economics, as any student in the UK will tell you, isn't actually that mathematical. Whereas in the final, it was really beefed up, and there was a lot more mathematics in there. So one of our learnings would be to actually to encourage greater use of that. But actually, obviously, we didn't train them before the contest itself, which is interesting as well. That we obviously supplied them with the links, and obviously there were resources on the website. But how well they did in the tests, obviously they got through the first, second round, so they clearly are intelligent. But also, it's a testament to their own hard work. They were very engaged in revising themselves, and they, as soon as they became the winning team, and it was clear they were all going to come to Hong Kong, they were very good at gathering together independently, without my involvement at all, to revise the subject themselves.
Would you explain to the listeners and to me also, how is the school system built in UK? Do you have the economics as the separate subject in ordinary schools?
Yep. So in all secondary school, so before university, economics can be studied at GCSE, which students take at age 16, and A level, which is obviously they take before university. So they both of those, it's available at both of those levels. So our students were in what we would call year 12, so they were 17, and they would have finished the first year of their A-level studies.
So they are not only acquainted, but they also have some training, at least in schools.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do they have any kind of presentations, business cases, solutions built in the educational system?
Not specifically, no. No, I think they took on a lot of the feedback that they got from the judges at the UK final. So they'd had a lot of practice. Obviously, they'd remembered that practice in terms of presenting and how to do that. Especially, like I say, Dr. Susan Walsh, who is magnificent. We got together for a day. We looked at previous examples of there are across the internet, there are previous examples of business case presentations. So they looked at those and and looked at sort of designing a template. The Obviously in the final there is a rubric. There is a series of grids of marks according to different criteria that the students are judged upon. And in the UK final, we had something very similar. So when the judges were marking each of the finalists' presentations, they were marking them according to a set of principles and a set of levels for each of those. So the thing is, they were very used to how it was going to be marked as well. And they are, to be fair, I mean, they're bright kids, so they're used to looking at they're used to looking at a document saying how something is marked, and then being able to produce something that answers the question. And I think that really is something that's very key for them. That they looked at what the judges were going to be looking for, and they made sure to produce what the judges were going to be looking for.
You said about the feedback session and about those professional jury members who were outstanding in their fields. Could you tell us more about how it went? What kind of struggles did your students encounter? How did those judges give the feedback? What was the most useful during this process? How long it was? You said it was one day, but like
so I mean the final all took place over one day. So over one day, everybody came to Rochester Independent College. They created, presented, and we decided on the winners. The judges themselves, so what we had was so we had 4 judges, and they would visit each of the 5 different finalist teams and give them feedback on what they'd done so far, and give them help and advice. So for instance, one of the judges was a chief financial officer, and so he gave advice on how to present numerical data, how best to present sort of numbers and figures, so that you get the message across, but you don't overwhelm the audience with too much numbers. Our local planning person gave a lot of local knowledge about things to consider. So this was all about building a tunnel under the River Thames. And so it was all about, so he gave a lot of knowledge about sort of things to consider in terms of the environment, sustainability, and local communities and considerations for that. So a lot of externalities for our economics literate friends. And our economist obviously advised them in terms of specific economic terminology, but also actually about how not to overburden yourself too much with too many economic terms, but rather simply use those economic terms in the explanation so that they almost define themselves. So they all had their specialist ways of looking at things, and they all helped all 5 groups in order to try and help them to make their presentations as good as possible.
Did the judges have an opportunity to review the works beforehand, or how was the process organized?
So literally, the groups prepared their presentations, and the judges saw of them was to be presented with them. So literally, it was the first time the judges saw the completed presentations was when they were presented, rather than they didn't get given the files beforehand so they could look at the slides or anything else like that. They literally looked at the presentation with the slides together and made an holistic judgment based upon that.
So there was this presentation of the teams, and afterwards the judges.
Afterwards, the judges went together. They each individually marked according to the mark scheme that we'd created, which sort of broadly runs along very similar lines to the IEO's one. Then they compared their marks, and obviously then made then a mutual decision as to which team they felt had performed the best.
I see. How much time did it take them to give all of those feedback to those 5 teams?
Well, we had a question. Obviously, they had a question and answer session after each presentation. So there was a lot of question and answer for each presentation. At the end of it all, the overall feedback for each of the 5 teams wasn't very long. To be fair, it would have been 20 minutes, half an hour at the very most. I mean, that really at that point, I think everybody's had a big day. What you really want to hear is a summary of what the teams did well, but ultimately at that point they all want to know who's won. So we didn't hang about too much before we said which one was the winning team, because that's the bit they're all really quite excited about.
I see. Were you able to outreach to all of the regions of the UK, or did you specialize in some region?
We invited teams from all over the UK. We had entrants from England, Scotland, and Wales, from all over the country. The finalists were from everywhere. We actually have our UK finalists are all from different areas. Well, 3 are from different areas of England, and 1 is from Wales. So they're all from different areas. So it was across the country. We had quite a wide variety of different locations represented.
How were you able to outreach to them? What sources did you use? Maybe you can give some advice based on your experience on how to build up.
Well, our marketing people had a list of, and there is a list of all of the secondary schools, and it's thousands and thousands and thousands, and you can get hold of those lists, and it's literally a case of just emailing those people, and the sort of general email address, and seeing who comes back to you. It is it's an organic process. So obviously in 2023 when we did it, there were a lot less schools who entered. where is it, or 20, and then into 2023, 24, there were a lot more schools that entered, but it grows. So the people that entered in the first year were then very keen to enter in the second year. So of course, all we need to do for those guys is to make sure everything's on the website. So they are, they're looking out for information from the website. Beyond that, it's actually just a case of getting in touch with schools. I think, again, organically though, if you were looking, I think if you were a new country looking to start, I think social media would probably be a very good way of doing things. So if you're, as a teacher of economics, are a member of, say, an economic teachers group in that country, so say Finland, if Finland didn't have a representative, so if there's a Finnish economics teachers, that you put a message on there, get the link on there. I think social media and those kind of things is also a really good example. I would also recommend, and obviously this is something we didn't do so much, is actually being more in touch with you guys. Obviously, you guys have a massive outreach in terms of that. So you guys have a much a larger spread than, say, us as a school has. So actually getting you to say, hey, we've got a new country. Finland are going to join the club, and et cetera, et cetera. So actually, sort of something that we didn't do that I would recommend of any new country to do is to don't do it on your own, either to reach out to you, reach out to other partners, certainly in terms of how to market it, but also I would say in terms of how to run it. There's a lot of hints and tips that a lot of things that I've learned meeting other team leaders in Hong Kong that that would be very useful for somebody starting out.
Did you try during this process to somehow access the governmental support, corporate support, I don't know, central bank support?
No, no, we haven't tried any of those things. So when we ran it this year, it was very much our own thing. It was self-funded. So we haven't asked for an entry fee from students. We've had no government support or corporate support, which was interesting, obviously, because obviously we can see from other countries how much more they involve government. I mean, the other interesting thing, of course, is that we haven't also involved universities. I'm just a high school teacher, and whereas obviously lots of other countries, it's coordinated through universities. So again, any new countries looking to maybe join in, if you're a school, look up with a university, run it with a university is always a good thing as well, because they may want it to be able to use it to recruit students. So again, but no, we haven't. I noticed there are a couple of countries that got some really quite fantastic corporate sponsorship. So again, maybe that's the route forward.
Do you have any plans to try to? Governmental support usually assists with promotion of the Olympiad if it's done well and free of charge. Corporate supports usually supports with the money, branding, venues, with some merchandise and etc. And universities, of course, can provide the faster route forward in life. Sometimes they give some scholarships and whatever.
I think I think I'll probably delegate those kind of decisions to those people who are more senior, and I'll maybe stick to what I'm good at.
That's a perfect answer. Do you have some person that is like this kind of high up that would be interested in trying to do something like this?
Well, again, we have, obviously there are people within Rochester Independent College, and then Dukes who own Rochester Independent College, who I would be lobbying, on all of that. So, but at the moment, I must admit, it's we would have to leave that. I don't know generally off the top of my head how we would go forward with that. So I wouldn't like to presume.
Yeah. That's an absolutely normal situation for, I think, maybe a third of organizations. They just simply don't have the access to connections sometimes. Sometimes they don't have the human resources enough to make it happen. And this is also interesting to see how it is for you, because in future days, hopefully, when you grow in numbers and in connections, it will be very interesting to come back maybe to this talk and to see how it actually went, because it's the most meaty, if I may say so, example when it's only starting. It's not that um, easy to implement an experience of an organization that exists for 20 years and have all the connections already done. It's much more interesting to look at how it develops in real time, in real life. So this is what
Absolutely.
I'm asking. You also referred to a website. Could you tell us more? Maybe.
Sure. I mean, the website is just the link off of the Rochester Independent College website that literally just talks about the Olympiad, and obviously links to the IEO, but then talks about the three stages that we operate in. And I don't think it's been updated yet, so it will still say that that in 2024 we're looking to go to Hong Kong. So, and it will still say that now, I suspect. I don't think it's been updated yet. So I think we will, but I can certainly send you the link to that. But again, we use that. We use that for linking to get people to register an interest as well, and just providing some general information and providing some general information about the IEO. So nothing complex about it, just a very simple website.
Who helped you to build it, or was it like made
Oh,
in?
it was built. It was built by one of our assistant principals. So she's in charge of doing all of that. I suggested text and content, and then she finished it off with branding and all that sort of thing.
Oh, great. Do you have in UK some kind of a culture of Olympiads, of competitions? Do those, if they exist, well, they definitely exist, but maybe in different ways, do they provide any preferences to the students who are entering the universities? Like, how does it work?
There are Olympiads. I think there are mathematics and science-based Olympiads. So again, these are again competitions that sort of run yearly, and we do sort of enter people into those kind of things. I don't think they generally give out. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, but I don't. My understanding is they don't give out sort of sponsorships or those kind of things for specific universities. But what they are, they're very good for university applications. So when you apply for a university in the UK, when you go through what we call UCAS, um, you'd provide a personal statement. You'd provide sort of information about yourself, and hey, I competed in so I competed in the International Economics Olympiad finals in Hong Kong, and I was part of the UK team that won, that were joint winners of the business case. That is something that stands out as an achievement, and of course then that's part of your sort of statement of what you are and what you've done. So it's a way of sort of when everybody's getting good grades, it's a way of making you stand out just a little bit more
Mm,
compared to fellow students.
I see. Now I want also to ask you about some hardships. What was the hardest part of making the competition happen?
It's time. It is time. I am a full-time head of business and economics. So I run a department. I manage 3 people. I have a full teaching timetable. So maybe I don't teach as many hours as some people, but sort of, I teach sort of 24 hours a week. I as well as managing the department and obviously the marking and preparation and reports and all of those other things that go into teaching, but then running the Olympiad on top of that, it's just an awful lot of time. What it's meant for me personally is that the first round, we coincided to work just before Christmas. So what it meant was I had the Christmas holidays to mark the work and then to let everybody know whether they'd got through to the next round or if they hadn't got through to the next round. And that obviously, sort of if you've got 1,200 people registered, that takes quite some time, and sort of feeding back their scores and all that sort of thing, and then getting the inevitable questions about, oh, well, how close was I to passing and all that sort of thing. So I didn't really get very much of a Christmas break, which is why I quite enjoyed round 2, because you ran that, and all I had to do was tell people whether they got through or not. And obviously, arranging and then coming to Hong Kong was obviously a large part of my summer holidays. So it's taken quite a lot of the holidays. It's quite a lot of work. That's the biggest hardship. It's just it's a lot of work. There is a real large time commitment there. What I would recommend anybody who's thinking of entering a team, don't be shy about 2 things. One, asking your colleagues for help. Ask your colleagues for help. Make it a team effort. Don't make it so that one person runs it. Make it so that lots of people do it, or whatever your organization is. 2, and this is where you would come in, is I would badger the IEO for contact details of other team leaders, established countries who've done the things for a few years, so that maybe you could get some friendly advice from other countries who've done it before about best practice, the best ways to set things up. Maybe they'd even, if you want to do a multiple choice round, maybe they'll even give you a few questions that they've written or something like that. But certainly, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to do things from scratch, all on your own, all over again. It's very difficult. I wasn't left with a lot of resources when I started it, even though it was our second year. So I ended up doing a lot of things brand new. And if I was going to advise somebody who was going to start up this year, I would say, don't do that. Get in touch with someone like me or Yuri from Canada or one of the other, or an established team leader, and have a meet with them, discuss with them, learn from them.
That's a wonderful advice. Do you work with alumni? And do you invite your former students to assist in organizing, preparing, making it happen for the national competition?
We did get Angelina, who was our inspiration for getting involved in the first place. She actually came and helped out this year, and actually gave a talk at the start of the contest. So in the morning when we gathered everybody together, she came and she talked about what gave her the idea and what inspired her to try and get it established in the UK. So she's one of our alumni. Actually, the head judge used to teach here. She's a professor of economics at the University of Bristol, but she used to teach at Rochester Independent College. So, I mean, so we don't specifically use alumni as such for the Olympiad competition, because it's only in its second year. So it's only done for 2 years. So we didn't really have anybody who who would specifically fit that description, or
Maybe as a short advice, I would suggest you at least look at this idea that the former alumni of the Olympiads usually are not only experienced in the Olympiad itself, but also involved into, they know the processes from inside, well, maybe from as a position, but still, and they are interested in the topic, in the competitions, in this way, in this approach to learning. So maybe they would be helpful for
good idea. Yeah.
um, from what you can see, and guys, whoever is watching, you also can see that many of the most successful Olympiads, they have a very strong network of the alumni, of the students that participated, that sometimes they didn't even get to the IEO itself, but still were in the national competition and decided to stay. And by their help, those competitions grow to tens of thousands of participants, and very interesting events they do. And it's a whole new life, like a brand new world. Amazing things. So just also one of the possible advices: don't lose those people. Get them involved. Sometimes they can help you even more than you can imagine. For example, Yulia Plotnikova, who is project manager for the IEO for a long time already. She came as a volunteer in the first year. And then somehow we found each other, and she decided to stay, and we asked her to stay. And it's an amazing thing that she did. Like, the project is holding on many things on her assistance. But maybe you have something to add, or you wish to tell something.
I actually want to. I want to tell you a story about how can we put. Obviously, we were very proud of how we were joint winners of the business case section, and I think that that I do think that obviously our national final and the way that we structured that, I think, really was a good help towards that. But it's interesting that we discovered from when our contestants were talking to other students. Obviously, you get 24 hours for the business case, 8 a.m. release and then 8 a.m. submission. But many teams actually worked for the entire 24 hours on their business case. We discovered, or one of our contestants actually said that we were in fact the first country to submit their finalised business case.
True.
And I would say, and again, there's a phrase that is often used in the UK, and I'm sure it's used all over the world, is "work smarter, not harder." And I would say, as my one abiding sort of experience from this year, is that actually I do wonder whether our guys did better on their business case because they were the ones who got the best night's sleep. You always present better when you've had a good night's sleep, and I genuinely think that they did really well, simply because they didn't just keep going. That diminishing marginal returns, as it were. So if I were ever going to give a tip to any other budding team, I would say that that a lot of the marks are for the presentation, and you present when you're at your best. So be at your best. Give yourself a night's sleep. Anyway. I'd also like to say I was just so terribly proud of the team. They were fantastic, an absolutely great bunch. They made lots and lots of friends from all over the world, and it was. And again, anybody who's looking towards sort of entering a country or representing the country as a new Olympiad venue, I really do recommend trying your very best to participate in person rather than remotely. I think our finalists have had an experience of a lifetime. I think they've made lifelong friends. They've made lifelong connections by going and meeting up with all of these people from all of these other countries. And I do think that experience is so much greater when it happens in person rather than just happening virtually. So if you are a country is looking at this and thinking of maybe taking up the IEO, do try, if you can, to sort of to factor in participation in person, because it genuinely is. It's a lot of hard work, and it's for us team leaders, it's not a holiday. It really is hard. It really is work, but the finalists themselves will genuinely have a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, absolutely. But not only the students were amazing, I had a lot of enjoyable time with all of you guys, team leaders, all the talks we had, all the evenings we spent together discussing the process of grading, the procedures of the Olympiads, of the national competitions.
It was a great experience, and it's well worth it if you can. I mean, that's what I would say for everybody.
Yeah, we met there the first time, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon. So here now you can see a couple of people who did learn about existence of each other during this event as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to see you all guys too, to meet you in person someday. And
Well, yeah, come to the UK. Come and visit us in the UK.